In this bulletin, Christian grandmothers disrupt military exercises. Iran nuclear deal highlights Christian persecution. And learning to rest on the Sabbath sofa.
This is InFocus Christian News and Current Affairs.
Hello, welcome to Record in Focus. It's great to have you with us. I'm Kent Kingston and your co-host is Sibel Couttet.
Thank you, Kent. And hello to you. On today's program, we'll have a history lesson with James Standish on the importance of the Magna Carta.
There has been a lot of commentary on that lately, hasn't there?
Yes, there has, and we'll find out why. Also, Trafford Fisher will be giving us some tips on keeping a marriage alive when there's the challenge of a chronic illness.
Yeah, boy, that would be tough. And today's interview, Sibella, I think you'll find it quite interesting. It's with Belle Thompson, who, like you, sings and plays piano. She has a great story of how God seemed to bless and lead her into music ministry right from the very beginning.
Well, I'll certainly be looking forward to that. But let's do the news first, shall we?
Yeah, go for it.
Australia's biggest military exercises were disrupted earlier this month by a group calling themselves the Quaker Grannies. The Quakers, with their 350-year record of opposing violence and war, held a simple tea party in a restricted military area in Rockhampton, Queensland. According to the ABC, the Talisman Sabre exercises are jointly conducted every 2 years by the Australian and US militaries. After spending an hour blockading a gate to the complex and negotiating with soldiers, the Christian protesters were arrested and removed by police. Each of them pled guilty to trespassing and was fined $500. No convictions were recorded. It's become commonplace for Australian Christians to organise mission trips to the Pacific Islands to build church or school buildings, but Hume Ridge Church of Christ in Toowoomba, Queensland, is taking the concept to the next level. Their planned project in Gandep, Papua New Guinea, involves upgrading an airfield, constructing 2 bridges and running 15 kilometres of road through the rainforest. Estimated cost? A bargain at $2 million. The low figure is made possible by the fact that volunteers will be doing a lot of the work. Fundraising is currently in full swing. Organisers say the project will improve access to road and air transport for about 170 villages, with a combined population of 20,000 people. Christian tertiary education is moving ahead in Australia, with an Adventist college on New South Wales Central Coast strengthening its partnership with a public university. Students graduating from degree courses at Avondale College of Higher Education this year will receive a testament bearing Avondale's seal, as well as that of Charles Sturt University. CSU has been supporting Avondale as it upgrades its academic and organisational standards, with a view to eventually becoming a university in its own right. Australia currently has 3 Christian universities. 2 of those are Catholic. The announcement of US President Obama's planned agreement with Iran to limit its nuclear ambitions has triggered an outcry from a variety of critics. Among those concerned are religious freedom groups, who are disappointed the agreement contains no requirement that Iran improve its commitment to human rights. Iran remains in the top 10 of the Open Doors World Watch List, which ranks countries according to the extent and severity of Christian persecution in their territory. In the US, Nagmeh Abedini, whose Christian pastor husband has been imprisoned in Iran for the last 2.5 years, pled with members of the Congress not to forget his situation. According to CBN News, Saeed Abedini is one of 90 Christians imprisoned for their faith in Iran. The United Nations has come under fire from a Catholic-based pro-life group that says this year's World Population Day is raising false alarm in its push for abortion, sterilisation and contraception. World Population Day highlights the work of the United Nations Population Fund, which focuses on the reproductive rights of women and girls, particularly those in developing countries. But the US-based Population Research Institute points out that global population growth rates have been declining for some time and questions whether the continued focus on birth control is justified. For the last few months, a cow on a farm in New Jersey has attracted 37,000 visitors. Someone even offered $1 million to buy her. The excitement is over the heifer's colour, red. The Old Testament book of Numbers says the ashes of a red heifer are to be used in preparing water for ceremonial purification. Today, some Jewish and Christian groups believe the recipe will be essential for the purification of humanity when the Messiah comes and the temple in Jerusalem is rebuilt. Not everyone is convinced, however.
Yeah, I think for people who are interested in this sort of thing and wondering those that have something to do with the end of the world, this type of speculation really, I think it's better to go right into the heart of the Bible itself. Start reading the books of Daniel, the book of Revelation, and the book of Hebrews. There is so much there that helps us point us in the right direction for what's about to take place in the end of the world.
A surprise development has caused some dismay, however. The red heifer has had a calf, disqualifying her for ceremonial use. This month marks 100 years since the death of one of the key founders of the Seventh-day Adventist Church, Ellen G. White. Over several decades, Mrs. White offered spiritual advice to the growing movement in America and Australia on the strength of her commitment to Bible truth and prophetic insights. With 40 books and more than 5,000 articles to her credit, it's been claimed that Ellen White, who only had a third-grade education, is the world's most translated female non-fiction author. A weekend conference in California, the place of her death, celebrated Ellen White's ongoing contribution. Also, to mark the occasion, 50,000 of her personal letters and other manuscripts were released publicly and are now online. This year also marks a significant anniversary for the world's most read English translation of the Bible. In 1965, a group of evangelical scholars meeting in Chicago was commissioned to go back to the most reliable biblical manuscripts available and prepare a brand new translation of the Bible in modern English. The result was the New International Version. 50 years later, 450 million copies of the NIV have been printed. To mark the occasion, NIV publisher Zondervan is releasing a new study Bible with updated notes, articles and charts. In a country where people are often reserved about their religious beliefs, 3 young Adventist pastors have come up with a way to get people talking.
Do you watch the news?
Yeah.
Yeah? What about it?
It's like a lot of the stuff, for example, what's going on in Russia at the moment.
Wow.
Now I'm looking for a new job because I've got no more energy to do it.
A couch sitting in the middle of a London footpath attracts attention, and many people love the idea of taking a rest.
Imagine that you could take 24 hours out of your life every single week, let's just say from a Friday sunset to a Saturday sunset.
Okay.
And in that time, you could rest.
Amazing. That sounds incredible.
Yeah?
Sounds like a dream.
A dream?
Come true.
Really?
Yeah.
I do need a day like that.
The Sabbath sofa has been popping up in all kinds of unexpected places, but the outreach team says that due to the weather in the UK, indoor locations are probably safest. Nestling deep in the jungles of central Java is perhaps one of the world's most unusual places of worship. 25 years ago, Christian man Daniel Alamja, in obedience to what he felt was a vision from God, began construction of a house of prayer in the shape of a dove. But after 10 years of building, the project ran into financial problems and had to be abandoned. According to the Mail Online, locals call the decaying structure the Chicken Church, and every year hundreds of tourists and worshippers of many different religions seek it out. And that's this week's news.
A chicken church, Sibel? I just don't know what to say.
Well, there are 2 schools of thought, Ken, on the Chicken Church. A lot of people think it's excellent.
Oh, really? And okay, let me guess. The other group maybe think it's not all it's cracked up to be?
Exactly.
Oh, dear.
Hey, don't go away. We'll be back with more Record in Focus after the break.
Signs of the Times, a magazine for a world on the brink.
And this month in Signs, can you be too sinful even for God to forgive? How to save money on your weekly supermarket shop. Poirot actor David Suchet on the iconic TV series and his Christian faith. What to expect when Jesus returns to earth. All in this month's Signs of the Times. Subscribe to Signs today and change your life.
Hi, welcome back. Well, in the year 1215, a very historic document called the Magna Carta was signed. Now, I've heard about this here and there, but here to rescue me from almost complete ignorance about this topic is James Standish. How are you, James?
Well, I'm great, Kent. I'll do my best.
So the year 1215 to 2015, that's 800 years. So that's why we're talking about that.
That's why we're talking about today, although any day would be a good day on the Magna Carta because it is a foundational document in the development of English law and, by extension, Western law and, by extension, global law.
Okay, so what Magna Carta, what does the words actually mean?
It just means a great charter. There were other charters that were signed, and it's a deal between the barons or the aristocracy and King John. You've heard of King John and Robin Hood and so forth.
He was the bad king, wasn't he?
He was the bad king, and actually he was less than popular. And so this was a deal that was done to secure certain rights, particularly for the aristocracy. Those rights really boil down to three different areas. The first is actually an interesting thing, the right of the church to be free.
Oh, so there is actually a religious freedom aspect
Absolutely.
to this.
And the idea is the church can appoint their own bishops, the king can't appoint the bishops, so that you have that sort of little bit of independence. You still have a state church, but at least it has some independence from the king. The second thing has to do with legal rights, the right to a fair trial, to be tried by your peers, and some procedural things that go in with that. And then the final area is tax, and there's a lot of clauses that have to do with protecting your personal property against the grab by the king.
Some things haven't changed, James. The top end of town whinging about tax.
That's exactly right. So this is sort of the broad outline. Why is this important?
Yeah, well, before that point was this idea of sort of the divine right of kings to rule, and the king could do whatever he or the queen could do whatever she wanted.
Well, divine right of kings actually becomes a much bigger issue in the 1600s, later on with King James I and the Stuarts. But the Magna Carta is used as a tool against him in the argument, both legal, public policy, and public opinion, for his grabs of absolute power, and of course, which end up in the English Civil War with the abolition of the monarchy for a little while. The idea is, some people think of this, the Magna Carta, as sort of the pulling together all the ancient Anglo-Saxon rights that predated the Norman conquest. Probably not exactly. It really is a negotiated settlement between two interested parties.
Well, what I'm really interested in, James, is how is the Magna Carta relevant to today? Because it's not codified in our constitution, or
it's not. But of course, it influences our ideas of jurisdictional fairness, and this is particularly important today because one of the principles that comes out of this idea is ideas like habeas corpus, which is if you're incarcerated, you have a right to come out before a judge in an impartial hearing in a timely manner. Now, in Australia right now, we have a whole group of people who the state has incarcerated. They're called boat people, and we're keeping them. In the U.S., we have a whole group of people who we've incarcerated on Guantanamo Bay, which we've said are enemy combatants.
So the whole habeas corpus thing is being, like, that line's being crossed with those people.
It's being crossed, but the argument's being made going back to this idea that obviously it's been subsequently encased in things like the Bill of Rights in the US and in the Australian Constitution and in our common law in the UK and across the boards. But the issues that are at stake there are still very much in play, and the influence, you'd hope, of this document would be towards the end of justice, procedural fairness, and away from ultimate state power without any accountability.
Well, there you go. Those who fail to learn the lessons of history are destined to repeat them, as they say.
Yeah, here we are. Huh?
Thanks so much for your time today, James.
Pleasure.
Stay with us. More in Focus coming up.
Thanks, Kent.
Welcome to Family in Focus. We're here today with our family life educator, Trafford Fisher.
Thank you, Monica.
Trafford, I have a sad story. I know this couple, they've been married for 30 great years, but he recently, through no choice of his own, was hit with schizophrenia. It must be just so hard as a wife or even a husband to be dealing with this in your relationship.
Dealing with mental illness or long-term chronic illness in a relationship is probably one of the really up there challenges for a couple. You know, it moves them from being in this fabulous place to not such a good place. Incredibly demanding on the relationship, changes so many things. There's a lot of guilt. One of the real issues for a couple is that it changes the normal. It's now moved from this was what it was like, and you'll hear a lot of partners say, I just want him back to how he was. You know, I just want him back. He may never be back there where he was. The mental illness may be a long-term thing. The chronic illness is going to be a long-term. So it really is a grief and loss issue.
So they have to let that idea go and find a new idea, a new normal, like you said.
I guess it's like a new normal, And to do that, they have to honour the grief. They have to recognise the loss and grief and loss. I have lost what I have. So we can't live in denial. And we also need to encourage people to know they can't necessarily change the illness. They would love to change, and they're going to work very hard to bring healing. But some things they can't change, and it's recognising I can't change him or her. I would love to, but I can't.
They can't necessarily change it, but their marriage can survive it, surely.
Sure they can. I think, sure they can, and many do. And I think that some keys, Monica, is to don't isolate. The natural feeling is, oh, this is embarrassing, or this is too hard to work, and it is hard work. So the temptation is to isolate, but you've got to fight that and say, no, I choose to connect. Stay connected with friends, with family, and the community as much as you can. I think number 2, take care of yourself. Right? It's really valuable because you can't be there for your partner when you aren't fully available because your own health is deteriorating. So that means emotionally, physically and spiritually we need to stay restored. We've got to find a support network, a common interest group, people who deal with the similar issues or people with those, find some support. Strengthen your heart, strengthen yourself physically and emotionally, and just take that support journey. So you build a new normal. This is now what normal is going to look like.
Thank you so much for your wonderful advice, Trafford.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching, and we'll be right back after the break.
Travel back in time to ancient civilizations with Archaeological Diggings digital magazine. This month, Diggings looks at the Shroud of Turin, one of the most studied artifacts in history. But is it really Jesus as claimed? We explore how ancient Egyptians not just adored, but literally worshipped their pets. And we also bring you the latest news from the fascinating world of archaeology. Don't miss an issue. Subscribe online or ask for Archaeological Diggings at your local newsagent.
Hi, welcome back, and it's great also to welcome Belle Thompson to the studio. How are you, Belle?
Great to be here. Yeah, good.
Now, 10 years you've been involved in Christian music. I don't want to say the word business, but I don't know what else other words to use right now. So 10 years you've been involved in Christian music, 4 albums. Does that make you a veteran musician?
Well, it does make it sound like I've been around for a little while, but I started when I was just straight out of uni, released my first EP and kept going slowly and surely from there.
Now, your journey into music started young, didn't it? There was this sense that your parents said, this daughter of ours, her hands will be blessed to do something for God, and you've ended up playing piano. What happened there?
Yeah, well, you know what's funny, because my family's actually totally not musical. Okay. And I was actually born with something wrong with my hands, and every night they would turn blue, they'd swell up. And I was booked into hospital to have an operation just as a baby to try and fix the problem. And my parents had just become Christians not long before I was born. And so the night before I was due to have this operation, they'd taken me to church, and some of the people there had said, "Oh, well, have you prayed about it?" And they're like, "Really? Like, can you even do that? Does God even
thought of that?
Yeah, totally. Does God even care?" And the people were like, "Yes, he totally does." So they just prayed for me at church that night, and nothing glamorous happened. My parents took me home, and the next morning, Mum went in to get me ready for hospital, and she noticed lying there in my cot that my hands weren't blue. She's like, that's so weird. And she said she was actually annoyed. She's like, oh, great. The morning of the operation, now the doctors won't believe it. But
this is like the car. You take the car to the mechanic. It's making this noise.
It's totally got this noise, exactly.
And then it doesn't do it.
Totally that. So they take me into hospital, and the doctors are like, she's totally healed.
Wow.
And I never needed the operation, and Mum really felt that was... that just really impacted her to understand that God actually really cares about, you know, the details of our life. And my dad said from that moment, he's like, God's going to totally use this girl's hands.
Wow, wow. And so when did you realise that maybe God's plan for you was music? Because you're full-time into music now, so this is not just, you know, leading worship at church on the weekend. This is a full-time thing for you. When did it start to click for you?
I started writing songs when I was a teenager, and I guess very slowly over the years, as my faith developed, that started being expressed in my songs as well. And I just became passionate about sharing the love of God in every area of my life, and songwriting was just one area. But I noticed over time that as I'd share music and share the message of who God is through music, that just really had an impact. So I guess my passion for that really grew, and it's just like anything in life. I think it develops over time and slowly, gradually.
Okay, all right. Before we go any further, Belle, how about we just, you know, so our audience can have an idea of your music and what you're doing. Let's just pause and just have a quick look at one of your clips. Oh, that's great. Do you have other clips available on YouTube that people can check out?
Yeah, sure do. They're all on YouTube, but we also have some extra ones. We released a DVD this year, as particularly last year when we were on tour, we kept having people say, we'd love to hear the story behind the song, or at live gigs I'll share a lot of the stories, and people are like, I want to get that story for my friends. And we thought it'd be great to have a product where we can really do that and share not just the songs but the stories behind. So DVD, it's got all the music videos and the stories.
Now you are a full-time, you're in full-time music ministry. How does that work? Like, how do you actually make a living?
Well, my husband has a lot to do with that. He's amazing. I love working as a team together for a start, and he's much better at all that side of it. I'm good at the creative side. But I guess, again, it started out very slowly. If you could look back years ago at my first tour, my goodness, there's been multiple times I've come so close to giving up. And I think with any God dream, in anything, not just creative, but any kind of ministry, that it's certainly, it's not an easy path. And I think we really do have to press into God and really know that what we're doing is worthwhile, that the message that is in the music is so worth getting to people. So back when I started out touring, I remember the first gig, so I was willing to go anywhere, country towns, wherever, and I was travelling with a band at the time. We finally had a church say yes, we could come, so we drove hours to get there, played this gig, and they were like, we're going to take up a special love offering. And I was like, yes, this is going to be awesome. And at the end, the minister's counting out the coins, and it was like $43.
Oh, wow.
And I think at that point...
Didn't even cover the fuel there and back.
Totally didn't. And I think at that point my band was like, we're going to consider other career options. So now I'm a solo artist. But no, certainly learned a thing or two along the way. And I think it is the passion for it that keeps you going, and really believing that we can absolutely make a difference as we use our gifts for God's purposes.
Wow, wow. So as you're there, as you say, you sing the songs, you tell the stories. You've got a particular heart for women, and you've done a lot of sort of women's conferences, women's events. Is there any particular reason or any particular themes that you sort of explore in those contexts?
I think women, it's all about relationships for women. So as I meet women at conferences and churches and different events, I think there's often a very big concern for just relationships, whether it's their marriage, their children, whether they hope to be married one day. And I think when being able to remind women how much they're worth to God and put the focus on that, I love to encourage women. And yeah.
You get a response, obviously you keep doing it, you're getting a response from them, I guess from audiences generally?
Yeah, I think music is powerful, really, and that's why I do it. I think I first learned this, actually, I was teaching an RE class up in Queensland. I felt like God wanted me to go into schools, and I was like, oh man, I don't even know if I really like kids, but I felt like God was wanting me to do it. And I learnt when I went in, I could talk and no one would listen. But as soon as I started taking my guitar in, I was like, there is something powerful about music. And those kids would learn the songs, they'd remember the songs. Ages later, they would still remember those songs. So I really learnt that if you can combine truth with music, there's just a really powerful combination.
Yeah, wow. So, Belle, if people are interested in, checking out your albums, you've got a website?
Yeah, bellethompson.com. That's the best place to go.
All right, and wherever good Christian music is sold. Now, your most recent album, you actually recorded that in Nashville in the US, didn't you?
Total dream come true.
Yeah.
I mean, for years I dreamed about working with a certain producer, Ed Cash, who I kept noticing his name on some of my favourite albums. He'd done Chris Tomlin, Carrie Job, Bethany Dillon, and a bunch of other stuff. And I thought, oh, one day I'd love to get to do that. And my husband was like, why don't we email him? And he's the practical one. I'm like, I was just going to pray about it.
Yeah.
But anyway, we were amazed when God opened all those doors. And honestly, it was such a dream come true. We did. Or it was very different to recording in Australia. My previous albums, we did all pre-production via Skype. So set up the laptop in my studio here in Australia and worked on the songs that way. I wrote all the songs here in Australia, and then we made a couple of trips to Nashville to do the actual recording. It was honestly,
awesome.
Such a dream come true.
Yeah, wow. Okay, well, you can see the result, I guess. But Nashville, you cannot have Belle Thompson. We've already got enough of our best artists.
Well, that was the cool thing. I got to do a duet with Paul Coleman while I was there, because he's living over there now too. So we're like, come here and record on the album.
Yeah, well, you can borrow Paul Coleman, but not Belle. Hey, thanks so much.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
We'll see you after the break.
Planning your future can be a daunting task. What you want to do, who you want to be, and the road ahead can often be unpredictable. No one really knows what the future holds. That's just part of what makes it all so amazing. And that's why a great education matters. Because it doesn't just help you get a great job, it helps you prepare for what life can throw at you and live a great life. Avondale, it's education designed for life.
Hello. Well, it's been a fascinating episode today, but we're out of time for now.
If you'd like to watch one of today's segments again or share it with a friend, all the InFocus videos are at our website, record.net.au.
Yeah, check it out.
We'll see you next time on Record in Focus.
God bless.